I have been waiting all weekend to bring you guys these clips, and it's just been so busy here, okay? But let's jump right in because I cannot believe what is happening in New York City. Shit is out of hand, and I don't know what I would do if I was there. Okay, it's crazy. Like, democratic states are getting out of hand. I know New York City is just the city, but it's the beginning of the communism that's about to happen in America, and Virginia is second on the list. I'll talk about that more later, but I just want to bring it up now because if I forget, you guys gotta look into that. The Virginia taxes, I think there's a dog walking tax, a dog grooming tax, a vehicle owning tax. There's so many like unnecessary taxes that you wouldn't even believe were taxes if you looked. It's wild. Okay, but I want to start in New York because communism is terrifying. And you guys got to see what's happening because we do not need this here. We do not need this in America. This is New York City's first free grocery store, okay guys? Ta-da! Let's go take a look. It is not fun.
I said it's not safe. That's the biggest thing. I literally got here at 9 o'clock, the same time they told this young lady to get here. And basically what they said is that they ran out of tickets.
I think it's very unnormal. They told me that they ran out of tickets. I couldn't get no more food. I couldn't get no pantry. I couldn't get access to the store.
And skincare, soap, food. I can get a bunch of stuff for free. And now it's just like, what are you doing?
What in the Hunger Games? Who thought this was a good idea?
I don't think it's a good idea for New York to do this all the time or every day on a consistent basis because it'll lead us back to maybe like Cuba when they give out food to families and everybody has to come.
So that's a concern for you. Okay.
New York City's first ever free grocery store is officially open, and here's everything you need to know. Located in the West Village, you'll find the Poly Market, where you can just walk in, fill your bag with fresh produce, bread, pasta, drinks, olive oil, cleaning supplies, snacks, peanut butter, seasonings, flowers, and then walk right out with no purchase necessary.
And it's gone!
Everything in this New York City grocery store is free while it's open for 5 days. It's part of a publicity campaign from Poly Market. Kalshi, a competitor, did something similar in the beginning of February. But why? And why now? And what even are these platforms? Prediction betting markets are a way to place investments on just about anything. From the number of views the Bad Bunny halftime performance video will get to whether anyone's going to be charged over the document disclosures. But why a grocery store to promote these platforms? During his campaign, Mayor Mamdani suggested the idea of a free grocery store in every borough. And it comes at a time where affordability, specifically the price of groceries, is a pressing issue in New York City and around the country. According to a CBS News price tracker, food prices have gone up 18.6% since January 2022.
I wonder who was in office then. I also love how their own graph shows just how good President Trump is. You can see this insanely sharp increase in food prices in 2022, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. But look at what starts to happen in 2025. Particularly towards the end of 2025, you even see a decrease in prices. Because, of course, Trump's policies aren't going to work overnight, but you see a slowing down of the increase of the cost of groceries with even a decline right there. Stuff like this doesn't happen overnight, and it's not going to get fixed overnight. But I feel way more comfortable with the 2025 and on part of the graph versus the 2022 to 2025 part of the graph.
Both companies are also based in New York City and said that this is a way to give back to the community.
Poly Market just announced its first free grocery store in the city of New York. So that means that capitalism brought free groceries to New York before Mamdani did. This is what you guys in New York voted for. This is why you voted for Mamdani, for all the free. And don't worry, I'm not going to be one of those people that's like, you better not go to this grocery store if you voted for Mamdani. You wanted socialism, remember? Because honestly, I hope that you get what you voted for. That's what anybody hopes when they vote. I just think it's really funny that capitalism is the system that ended up giving it to you and not socialism, the system that you voted in. Actually, Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I've seen a single Republican bash this idea. See, it's not that Republicans actually have a problem with helping the less fortunate. It's that we feel that we shouldn't be forced to do it, that people should willingly contribute to that type of system, which they clearly did.
Not only that, we also know what handouts can cause to people, right? That's why people who've studied the economics that happened after the Black community was freed, right? And how prosperous they were doing, creating their own cities. And then all this welfare started happening, right? And what happened? It created a mindset of not needing to do things because handouts. And that is what communism creates. It creates an environment that destroys itself. It's so important to recognize these patterns, especially right now. It's just crazy right now. And I don't know, man. If you haven't found God yet, it's the one thing that will always keep you right, man. I don't know. Communism is insane. Insane.
This is an example of how US dollars can be spent wisely under capitalism. And your problem isn't actually with capitalism, it's with the people who run capitalism. And do you know how you fix that in a capitalist society? You give your money to companies like this, who do things like this with the money that they earn.
Or you vote in better politicians.
This is a perfect example of how people can willingly fund welfare programs in America without having to be full-on socialist. So congratulations, New York. You got your free groceries, and you're still the capitalist heart of America.
I don't like the way that this was done. I don't like the lines that go on for blocks. And from reports, there were people who were cutting in line, people who were being aggressive. To go out and announce that, hey, there's free food at a grocery store, you guys just have to show up. It is a recipe for chaos. I think there are much better ways to handle something like this. They could have had people register online and do a first come, first serve type of situation, and then email people a particular code and give them a time when they are allowed to come to the store. That way there are no lines, there is no chaos, and if you don't have whatever particular code that they sent to you ahead of time, then you don't get in and you can't go shopping. And that's going to do a couple of things. That is going to make sure that everybody is safe, that there are no stampedes, and it also preserves people's dignity.
I had to travel. I live in on Burnside. I live in the Bronx. I had to take the D train from Tremont over here. I was spending an hour just to get ready and everything.
I've seen a mix of things. Like security needs to work on their presentation, dealing with the customers who are of backgrounds, shall I say, because they don't have the customer service expertise. And whatever training they have is, no, that's not going to work.
I even met a woman that came from India yesterday, and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm in line. I'm coming to get free food." I'm thinking, how's she gonna get back on the plane with that?
Want to say that I can't believe that they didn't limit this
On a
program,
plane?
but I guess I can believe it. But the idea.
Wait, they said on a plane? Wait, I gotta hear that again.
I even met a woman that came from India yesterday, and she was like, "Oh my God, I'm in line. I'm coming to get free food." I'm thinking, how's she gonna get back on the plane with that?
Want to say that I can't believe that they didn't limit this program, but I guess I can believe it.
IDs for shoveling, but not for the line, huh? That's kind of funny too. You'll understand later if you don't know what I'm talking about.
But the idea that someone who is just a tourist can show up and get free food and then probably can't even fly back home with the food that they got is ridiculous. It is such a waste of resources if you're just giving free food to just anybody who shows up versus people who are actually truly in need.
I get here at 9 o'clock, they're going to tell me that they're not giving no more tickets. And I'm like, how could y'all not give out no more tickets and it's supposed to only be 300?
They had time to be prepared. They had time to organize the waiting line. They had time to do everything and organize. Why does it take you a bunch of times to for all this mess?
I think it's very much needed in New York because it is, as a city of this magnitude and the reputation of New York, it is very much needed because there are people that are coming from everywhere.
I got the spaghetti. I got orange juice. I like orange juice. I also got some ground beef.
Okay, we're going to continue just down the line, just so you can see that the line is stretched all the way down here. It is stretched all around the block, and I'm coming.
Bread lines. Very fun, right, guys? I bet you can't wait for your local bread line to get food.
Up on another lady I had spoken to, Miss Athena. Here we are. We spoke with you a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
So now, what do you think about this whole thing? Because you and I had talked about the fact that this is basically related to gambling.
Yes.
You know the company, and they have donated $1 million to the food bank of New York City.
Yes.
So this is a promotion as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think about all this?
It's a good idea, just for the experience.
Right.
I don't think it's a good idea for New York to do this all the time or every day on a consistent basis, because it'll lead us back to maybe like Cuba, when they give out food to families and everybody has to come.
So that's a concern for you. Okay, Athena, thanks so much.
I think Athena gets it. Because as we all know, there's no such thing as a free lunch.
Mandami asked New York state lawmakers to approve a 2% tax hike on the wealthy. John Katsimatidis joins me now. All right, John, why is it always tax the rich and it's never cut the spending?
Well, New York City has gone, when I ran for mayor in 2013, I think we had 249,000 New York City employees. Now it's like 306,000. So somewhere along the line, somebody has to learn how to run a business. And New York City is, besides politics, it's running a business, and everybody has to get a little bit smarter. Look what happened to California. Everybody, the exodus is happening. The people are moving out of California. Even Zuckerberg is moving to Florida. That was the big headlines on yesterday's news. So, I'm willing to give our new mayor. We talked about it: 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to learn what running a city is all about. He is a young kid. He's 34 years old.
He's far more gracious than I expect a mayor to have experience and to hit the ground running. Not that there's not a learning curve, but you should be bringing a serious amount of expertise with you if you're going to do a job like this.
But he has.
That's why it's important for people to do research instead of just going off of vibes. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of them voted for him just because of his vibes and his smile. They actively said that. They didn't know much about him. They didn't know he was a rapper. They didn't know all these things about him, that he supports terrorists. I don't know. Voters these days are just so ignorant. And even those who don't vote are the most ignorant because they don't vote at all. I'm sorry, if you don't vote, it's kind of ignorant. You're not using your voice. How can you say your voice doesn't matter if you haven't tried to use it? Doesn't make sense to me.
To learn fast, and if he doesn't learn fast, it's going to cause problems.
Next one, John. Polymarket has opened its free grocery store. It's in New York City. The line was out the door. It'll be open through the weekend, and shoppers can go in
the weekend.
Fill up one tote bag full of free groceries. That's what they get. Now, John, is this an advertising gimmick?
There's no way it lasted the weekend, right, guys? Was it just a couple hours? It was, right?
Or is it a real serious entry into the free grocery store business?
I had an experience years ago when I had an associate of mine dealing with at a casino with a banker from Europe, and he would say, "I'm going to lend you $1,000, and if you make a profit, you give me back the $1,000. But if you don't make a profit, he doesn't ask him for the $1,000 he lost." So somebody in New York City wants to make New York City their dream of free groceries alive, and it's all. It's $1 million quasi for somebody in the city for Polymarket, or either that, it could just be PR.
He didn't provide any facts to back up his claims, and at the same time, I wouldn't be surprised if he was correct.
Now, if you guys don't already know about the snow, it's insane there. This might mention it a little bit. I just can't wait to show you guys how crazy the snow pileup is, and with it's just also nuts. Let's see.
Okay, so I want to bring you an update on this whole Mamdani tax increase budget crisis situation, because to put it shortly, it's being exposed right now that Mamdani is scamming and lying to you about this, which I know is a big surprise to everyone. But what's happened is that people have started to dig through the weeds of what is actually in this ridiculous $127 billion budget proposal that Mamdani has brought. Keep in mind, this is the very budget he's claiming is essential. And I'm sorry, but it's an existential crisis, and we're gonna have to raise property taxes on ordinary New Yorkers because Albany is refusing to raise income taxes on the rich. And what he's telling you is there's no other way, right? There's $1 billion shortfall in the state's treasury, and we're doing all we can, but we're so sorry. We're going to have to raise taxes to keep the city functioning, is the way this is being framed. Except when you look at what's actually in this budget, you find that's not really true at all. As a matter of fact, we're finding billions of dollars being spent on stupid, wasteful DEI offices, as one example. I know, so essential, right? Simultaneously, the police, for whatever reason, is being defunded, but not these massive, over-bloated social services and all that. And it really does vindicate the theory I've been pushing lately that the reason why Democrats never deliver on their promise to say, hey, we may raise your taxes, but we're going to make your life better, we're going to improve social services, and that never happens, is because they quite literally take the extra tax money and spend it on this ridiculous nonsense, right? Essentially the money laundering to set up millions of dollars of DEI projects, and they don't accomplish anything and nothing gets done. And hey, all of our construction keeps getting delayed, and then they keep overbilling the government over and over again. Why? Because the Democrat Party is essentially a mass money laundering criminal organization. And that's what's going on right here, frankly, with this new government budget that Mamdani's claiming, oh, we can't cut any more from the budget because then the city would go underwater. Oh, really? You can't cut the Office of Racial Equity or the Commission on Racial Equity? By the way, why do they need both an office and a commission for the same exact thing as one example? Yeah. So we'll get into this here today. I also want to tell you about maybe...
Okay, before he explains more about... Before we jump into this budget here, just remember, who cares, alleged or not, the Democratic Party sucks. But yeah, it's alleged, guys. Alleged.
Some of the inner politics going on right now in the city, because it appears that multiple city council leaders are starting to rebel against Mamdani's idiotic proposal to raise the property tax, claiming it's absolutely necessary. No, it's not necessary for the functioning of the government, right? It's necessary for your socialist agenda, right? Is what's essentially here going on. And basically they're saying they refuse to vote for this. We'll see what happens on that front. But yeah, to make a long story short, I don't think it's exactly all that good of politics to get into office and immediately declare that you're going to be raising property taxes on everyone after campaigning on affordability. But hey, who knows? This is what a bunch of clowns in New York City voted for. I would venture to guess that many of his voter base, much of his voter base, a lot of his electorate probably doesn't own property to begin with. But hey, we'll talk about this here today, guys. First, though, do us a favor. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. We greatly appreciate the support, but it also ensures that you can stay up to date with all of the latest news and coverage. And that said, okay, let's check in on the $127 billion budget that, I repeat, Mamdani's claiming is absolutely necessary, right? This is despite the fact that it's way more than the government budget of the whole state of Florida, which has nearly 3 times the amount of people. But hey, I get it. New York is a metropolitan area. They have infrastructure. Except when you delve into this, you realize, again, what he's claiming, we absolutely have no other choice than to raise your taxes over, you find out is pretty utterly ridiculous. So take a listen to apparently what's in this budget proposal.
Equity, $4.6 million, Commission on Racial Equity, $835,000, Commission on Gender Equity, $260,000 for Department of Education, Chief Diversity Officer, $301,000 for 3 FDNY civilian chief diversity inclusion officers. There's a title for you. And $118,000 for an FDNY chief diversity inclusion officers. Is that necessary stuff? You can't cut that back?
And a list of things to do when it comes to public safety? Absolutely not. Public safety's got to be in the top of your list. So we can't pay for everything. Everything can't be for free. But what you need is cops out in the street. Tell me how all these programs are going to help when you're getting robbed in the middle of the street.
Yeah, and
how that works.
Yeah, you tell me. Believe me, he's about to find out, sadly. Mamdani's progressive agenda includes new budgets items like $750,000 for art and cultural fund, $800,000 for anti-ageism, $437 million for child care vouchers, LGBTQ emergency for $2 million. It goes on. And you pointed out his climate change budget. What's he spending on that?
Yeah, see, normally in a real budget crisis, you would think that some of these things would be the first to go. You know, for example, does the Office of Racial Equity really need $5.6 million? And by the way, if there's already an office, then why do you need $4.6 million for a commission on racial equity? It makes no sense. Typically, a bunch of these useless bureaucrats are the first people to get furloughed in a genuine crisis. But after all, I think you're starting to see what this is really about. Worth noting as well, okay? So we're out of money, according to them. But Mamdani, on top of just what previously existed in New York, is adding new funding, in some cases millions of dollars, for these DEI projects, like giving it to art and culture. Really? Is that what you're spending money on when you're in a huge budget deficit and you're trying to figure out where to come up with the money, right? Fighting ageism, climate change. I mean, what's going on here, right? But I think you start to notice something, is that truly there is no actual budget crisis in New York City. It's being entirely manufactured. And so if you look at, hey, why is Mamdani not defunding this? Wouldn't that make sense? Ideological reasons? No. Please keep this in mind, right? The $127 billion budget is actually a huge increase even from the last fiscal year, okay? So you would think at least, okay, can we keep the current budget? No. He's expanding on the current budget while claiming we're in a deficit. What does that mean? It's a crisis he's creating by his own hands. Is he creating it because he's incompetent? I actually think no there. It is a purposeful thing, and by the way, the far left does this very often, where they essentially try to break something on purpose to force action and say, oh, you have to...
It's perspective. It's about perspective, just like calling arresting people kidnapping, separating families, just normal detained, right? When you're detained, your family doesn't get to come with you to be detained. Or if you go to prison, or if you go to a mental institution, you're not going to be able to take your family with you. That's not separating families. That's just manipulation of perspective to manipulate your emotions so that you react without thinking.
Embrace socialism now. What do I mean by that? Well, for example, right? Mamdani's agenda this whole time has been he wants to raise taxes, whether that's on rich people or the quote-unquote working class. It doesn't matter, socialism.
Because he knows all the rich people are going to leave, and it is going to be on the backs of the middle class that stay or are stuck.
End up raising taxes on everybody in the end, right? But obviously, as we have previously covered, Albany, the state government, does not want to do it. Kathy Hochul doesn't want to do it. She's campaigning right now in her re-election campaign on no new taxes. And so what can Mamdani do to try to manufacture the support in order to raise taxes? Well, let's claim we're in a budget crisis because look at what we have to do. And please try not to pay attention to the fact that this budget crisis is being entirely created, right, by our lack of own fiscal responsibility. You see what I'm saying there?
It's what I'm saying. It's a manipulation of perspective to mess with the people who don't go. You don't have the time to go do the research, right? Most people are working 10 hours a day, 8 hours a day, sometimes 6 if you're lucky. For the most part, people work 8 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week. And you're not going to be able to go do this research, right? You're going to trust that the people who... I'm a they say, I'm a journalist. I'm going to be here to tell you the truth and give it to you straight with no emotional manipulation. But that's the tactic now. Ever since COVID and they saw how easy it was to manipulate the masses through emotion, even, honestly, they've been doing it forever. They did it with the perspective of cops against Black people. They did it with the perspective of COVID for sure. They did it with the perspective of right now with ICE. It's just this manipulation tactic, and they've always used it since the beginning of time. It's sad, but it's true. There's evil in everything, including journalism, and you have to be able to spot it out. It's when they're manipulating you. If you feel emotional, go do more research. Make sure, because those emotions could have been instilled in you so that you would react before thinking.
And it's pretty convenient, actually, in the process. He's managing to fulfill, through this fake budget crisis that he created, a lot of his own ideological initiatives. Because you notice, obviously, that the DEI funding is not going anywhere. As a matter of fact, it's only increasing. But simultaneously, while he's increasing funds for all of this woke, social, left-wing stuff, I pointed out to you yesterday, he is at the same time defunding the police, claiming the budget crisis as the excuse to why he's doing that, right?
And don't forget, he says that he wasn't going to get rid of the cops or whatever, but he's always said defund the police. And I talked about this in my last video about Minneapolis, how Mamdani is manipulating the police there after a situation that occurred. A cop went into this house. He was invited in. He was called in because the father was acting erratic and the family wanted help. When the cop got there, the man got pissed, pulled out a knife. I think the officer may have been stabbed or was almost stabbed, but he shot the dad. The dad's alive, but he's in critical condition. I don't know if he's still in critical condition. He was in critical condition in the hospital, and they're trying to use this against the police department, and I knew they would once I heard about it. Just like once I knew Mamdani was going to be in office, there was going to be a pet tax, right? And he is discussing that. A pet tax. Could you guys imagine a pet tax? Okay. I think it was just brought up by a constituent, but it went around the internet a little bit, and it was just kind of funny because I knew something was going to come up about pets. I just knew it. They say when communism enters, the first thing they try to get rid of are pets. Like, they don't want the people to have pets. They'll let, like, farmers have some, but in the end, even the farmers will lose their pets. Communism is terrifying, guys. It's terrifying. All right, this seems like the perfect place for this update, so I'm just going to add this really quick. I want you guys to see what's going on in New York, like, as of this week, and the way the NYPD is treated is just deplorable. It's so disgusting.
New York City police officers were ambushed by mobs, and the new socialist mayor has yet to say anything. Wow, this is terrible.
A planned snowball fight in Washington Square Park on Monday is now drawing sharp criticism after some people began pelting multiple NYPD officers with snow. Tim McNicholas is live in our newsroom to explain. And Tim, what are you hearing?
Cindy, this snowball fight was planned on social media and drew a large crowd to Washington Square Park. This is crazy. A similar snowball fight happened during the last big snowstorm just weeks ago, but this time around, Commissioner Jessica Tisch says some people went too far. She's calling it disgraceful and an illegal attack on officers. Yeah. Video circulating online show how multiple cops were repeatedly pelted with snowballs. The Detectives Union says people who threw the snowballs at cops should be prosecuted. The Police Benevolent Association agrees.
But these crowds were massive, and that reveals the real problem facing the city right now.
In New York City yesterday, there's a video captured of punks basically hitting cops one after the next. They even go as far as running up to the cops with chunks of snow and smashing it. And these cops do nothing. They say nothing. I guess they feel as if they can't. The mayor doesn't have their back.
They can't.
They'll be the ones who wind up getting sued, and nothing is done. First of all, my entire family is cops, going back all the way to my grandfather. If this would have happened decades ago, when they were all cops, I can tell you right now, all the cops would have walked off the job today by now. If the cops saw that the mayor was doing nothing to protect them, especially in this sort of video that we just see there.
Can you imagine if that happened?
So I say to the cops, I have the utmost respect for you all time. I donate to cops. I always am of the blue. But this is one of those times I'm saying, hey man, you're burying more than your pride. Let New York City just watch what it's like without having cops.
And at this point, I completely agree with him. You guys hate cops so much. Cops are such bastards. Then let them leave the job. They're there to protect you. They're not there for them. Well, I mean, obviously they're there because they want to protect their families and stuff. But if they don't have respect or gratefulness from the community, why stay a police officer?
Same budget crisis he won't, cut DEI for. See what I'm saying? it's actually a prime political example of how you use a fake manufactured crisis to ram your ideology down everyone. Because I think what Democrats have frankly started to notice is that, well, as it pertains to crime and policing, these BLM slogans of defund or abolish the police are extremely unpopular. People generally want you to be tough on crime. They've seen what happened to American cities since 2020. They don't want to go back. And so Mamdani, as you noticed in the campaign, was a little bit silent about some of his past policing positions. He actually claimed that he moderated. And so you may be asking the question, okay, is he going to be fine? Is he going to be common sense? Maybe he's not so bad anymore. No. You see what I'm saying here? His agenda was always to defund the police. He's just finding a different way to do it. And what a convenient excuse to make cuts because of the budget crisis. Well, you're not making cuts to anything else. Why is the police, by the way, the first thing you think to cut, right? I would say if I was running a city and we had to genuinely make cuts, we're in a budget crisis, probably police, fire department, emergency services is the last thing you should touch, not the first thing. But as we brought you this news yesterday, right? New York City Mayor Mamdani is looking to get the Big Apple on a tighter budget, according to him, and seems to see cuts first and foremost, before cutting DEI, right, to the NYPD, as a way of getting the city on track. Mamdani's predecessor, Eric Adams, had proposed at the end of his term that the city hire 5,000 more NYPD officers, which they desperately need. However, upon entering office, Mamdani had moved to cancel that order.
Absolutely not surprised. His whole team is not a big fan of the NYPD. I truly don't think he knows anything about public safety. And now you're going to cut back 5,000. We need about 40,000, and we're roughly close to 34,000. So cutting back 5,000, and we're probably going to lose another close to 4,000 like last year. Recipe for disaster. Public safety is the key to New York City.
Additionally, in the preliminary fiscal year 2027 budget, it notes the importance of significantly reducing current vacancies, which could include reductions in funding for NYPD based on unfilled positions. So,
could you guys imagine living in New York City right now? I would be petrified. Tell me how you would feel if you found out the person you voted for was going to take all this money and put it into DEI programs that we actually don't ever really get to see the results of, right? Even when they say climate change, when do we see the results of those climate change things? Never, because for the most part, it's not real. Of course, climate change is real. Climate change is real in the sense that the earth gets warmer and colder forever and ever. Amen, right? That's what that means. It doesn't mean that the world's going to end in 4 years. They lied to us about so much. Climate change, booty, okay? Boo, shh. All right, I'll stop talking about that. But anyways, it's such a waste of money. It's like when they started having shrimps run on treadmills. What do we need that for? We don't. We really don't. Or when they got those puppies high on cocaine. We're actually going to be talking about that really soon too, because I want to finish the State of the Union with my Trump series, because it was his first address to the Congress, right? Which is the first State of the Union technically. And I was thinking maybe we can finish the last few hours just going over it quick with the new State of the Union stuff, because honestly, I'm over it, you guys. My ADHD, it's too much for me. It's too much for me. I want to do it. I want to talk about all the things, but it's rough. It's rough. I get bored. I already talked about it right in the first video, so it's hard for me to go back over it, and I feel like weird watching myself. It's very strange, but I'm trying, because it was important to me to get all that out there, especially those first few ones. Even what's coming up, I want you guys to hear about RFK. That one's so important to me. I love RFK with all my heart, okay? To me, he is the new Teddy Roosevelt. I'm a little disappointed that we haven't gotten so much done that I can see, but I know that he must be getting so much done behind the scenes, especially in the medical field. He's done a lot. I want to see more changes in the food industry, though. I love Teddy Roosevelt for his book and what he did for America, for the people. He exposed, right? He exposed what was really making so many people ill and killing us. And that's why I love Teddy. And that's why I love RFK so much. He reminds me of Teddy so much. Okay, I know that was way off topic, but I just wanted to bring that up really quick. And, okay, let's go into this. I'm sorry.
Donnie's essentially writing the fiscal year 2027 in a way to make sure it defunds the police without directly saying it's defunding the police, right? No. We're reducing vacancies, and that's going to mean this reduction, that reduction. It sounds so complicated, but right, what happens in the end? What is the end effect? The police gets defunded. The Gothamist, a New York-based publication, noted that Mamdani's budget proposal includes a $22 million decrease in the NYPD's budget for next year, right? So you notice all the fancy ways he's using to do this? He's not directly saying, I'm going to defund the police. Again, Democrats understand that publicly taking these pro-crime stances is highly unpopular with people. It's even causing backlash in deep blue cities. But of course, that's a way to do it subtly. By the way, I warned everyone, hey, as it pertains to Mamdani's mayorship in New York City, probably the thing that you're going to be hardest hit by, believe it or not, is not necessarily even the socialism stuff. It's the crime stuff, because that's immediately the place where he can immediately make the police stand down. And look, that's what he's doing right now as we're talking, right? That said, let's tell you now about the situation in the New York City Council, because things are starting to get interesting here.
Good morning to the both of you. And that's as the City Council appears to be against Mayor Mamdani's budget proposal of raising property taxes by 9.5%. The mayor saying, however, this is a last-ditch effort in order to close in on that $5 billion budget gap that the city is facing.
Apparently, he's now getting backlash from members of the council. Council speaker, so the leader of the City Council here, Julie Menon, and Finance Committee Chair Linda Lee have promptly poured cold water on Mamdani's property tax ploy. Again, this is the ploy to say, well, because we have to spend millions on TEI, that's why I have to raise your taxes while I'm, of course, defunding the police. Hey, have you considered taking the money that you're using to defund the police and putting that toward the city budget? Oh, I doubt it. No, it's going to go to the DEI money laundering, right? But in an interview, Lee here noted that the property tax increase would have a negative effect on a lot of homeowners in her district in Eastern Queens and others. Gee, you don't say. Not only that, the proposal would exacerbate the fiscal problems of rent-stabilized housing even before Mamdani's proposed freeze on rents, which I think also is a very ironic part to point out about this. So if you remember, Mamdani's big promise, which he's still yet to even touch on the campaign trail, is he was going to freeze the rent for rent-stabilized housing. Now, this is essentially imagine Section 8, but for the middle class, right? This is where, your property is owned by a private landlord, but essentially it's price controlled and regulated there by the government. Mamdani's saying, I'm going to freeze the rent. Now, the huge economic problem with freezing the rent is that in a city where costs are already going up, why would you want to be a landlord when the government is basically imposing price controls on what you can actually rent to people, right? You'd see probably many cases where that landlord says, oh, I'm going to go under. I can't, manage my costs anymore. So I'm just going to sell this place. And then guess what you have in the end? Less rent controlled housing. So you can freeze the rent. It's just there's not going to be any rent controlled apartments to even find because you price the landlords out of the market by doing that.
And what do you expect is going to happen after that, you guys? Really? What do you expect will come next? Because, oh my God, I just fixed this and now I can't put my headphones back on. What you can expect next is for the government to either come in or government-like figures to come in, buy up those buildings, okay? Government housing, more places for them to funnel money. And this is a real thing that happens, okay? I'm not saying it's happening right now, but it could happen, and it's happened in many cases.
It's worth noting the mayor, Mamdani here, asserted that there is no third way, but of course there is. As we pointed out, you could actually just make cuts to the city budget. Mamdani's claiming we can't afford any more cuts. We just showed you several cuts you can't afford, right? As noted in...
Could you imagine if everyone just loved the Doge, and then the Doge could be doing this for New York? New York could have its own version of the Doge, and they could be eliminating waste. It would be so amazing for all of America. But no, they had to put that in people's heads, right? That too was once used again by the media to make people fear Doge, rather than understand that Doge was created to protect our taxpayer money.
The statement, the city can reduce spending and raise new revenues. Previous mayors had closed budget gaps with PEG cuts, an acronym for Program to Eliminate the Gap. Agencies would be assigned targets representing percentage reduction in the expense and capital budgets. In other words, the agencies, the overbloated government agencies here would have to actually do a Doge, right? They'd have to actually say, who do we not need? How can we reduce budgets? And do these people need to be making $200,000-$300,000 a year to do nothing? But
the Doge was so important and it could have done wonders, but no, we have to let the media trick us as a freaking group, and then nothing happens. It's so frustrating to people who just want real change.
Of course, that goes against Mamdani's ideology. The whole ideology of Mamdani is let's give out a bunch of public jobs to people for the sake of money laundering and keeping them happy and keeping them voting for us. That's what socialists tend to do a lot. But the mayor, dubiously here, stated that the agencies could not tolerate larger cuts and sustained services. So what Mamdani's claiming is that there's no way the city is going to function, as I said, without actually, if we did make cuts to the budget. But as we just showed you, that's obviously not true. Obviously, there are things in this that you missed and you absolutely could cut. But anyways, this is going to be a really interesting thing to watch, because if the city council speaker and the finance committee chair, two of the most powerful people on the entire New York City Council, are saying no to Mamdani's plan to raise property tax, then what's Mamdani going to do, right? So he's already got a no from Kathy Hochul in terms of raising state income tax. He's got a no from the city council in terms of raising property tax. So literally he just cannot pass his budget because it wouldn't be balanced. So in that case, will he have to capitulate? Will he have to ultimately just make cuts to the budget? Or are we going to see a New York City government shutdown? I'm not exactly sure, but this is going to be a pretty interesting situation to watch. Just remember through all of it, folks, as we established in this video, Mamdani is lying. This is a fake manufactured crisis. It's almost a false flag in a sense, right? It's a false flag budget crisis in order to ram down his radical left agenda, which includes millions of dollars of DEI that are essential for the city, oh sure, while defunding the police at the same time. Shouldn't be all that surprising.
What Mamdani plans to do if he doesn't get the money, you guys, is even more insane. It's even more insane. Now, I know how that sounds, but it's true.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, we have to talk about what's happening in New York City because, honestly, it has been highly fascinating to watch. Zohran Mamdani, the newly elected mayor, we know he comes in promising free programs everywhere, saying it's all going to be covered for by the rich, tax the rich. That was the pitch. And now we're starting to see how that's actually playing out, and, color me shocked. Surprise, surprise, it's not going exactly according to the campaign brochure. And Mamdani is quickly becoming the timeshare of U.S. mayors, where it sounds amazing when the sales rep is telling you that it'll be great, you'll own your own timeshare. And then after you buy it, you realize it was all one big scam. And so now New York is turning out Mamdani.
I'm Assemblyman Zohran Mamdani, and I'm running for mayor to freeze the rent for every rent-stabilized tenant.
Wait, you're gonna freeze my rent?
Yes.
Did I hear rent freeze?
Yes! This guy's gonna freeze the rent. No hike?
None.
This guy's gonna freeze the rent.
It's true. As your next mayor, I will freeze your rent.
See, it's amazing marketing. Amazing marketing. And a great smile, I can't lie, right? His smile is he's like a puppet, like it's so perfectly placed, and his cheeks get it's like he smiles. It's like he was trained by Tyra Banks.
If we do not fix this structural imbalance and do not heed the calls of New Yorkers to raise taxes on the wealthy, this crisis will not disappear. It will simply return, year after year, forcing harder and harsher choices each time.
They put the sticker over the lady. That's kind of funny, because imagine how much they paid her just for this. Just to be covered up by this. And that's your money too. That is taxpayer money. Now I know it's necessary, okay? But captions exist. And this is crazy.
And if we do not go down the first path, the city will be forced down a second, more harmful path. Faced with no other choice, the city would have to exercise the only revenue lever fully within our own control. We would have to raise property taxes.
So, I guess he's asking, what's a 2% tax increase on a multimillionaire?
If you're already the highest tax jurisdiction in America, it's a massive tax. You know, what I love about this guy, and I'm giving him credit, he goes big. He goes big, and he's got a fantastic social media team. This is great. This is bat poo-poo crazy, what he's proposing. And probably sometime next year, within 12 to 18 months, I will meet him in Miami and give him real estate of the year award.
Not
Because
wrong.
I'm not happy with what's happening.
He's not just a communist, right? He's a champagne socialist. He's a champagne socialist.
I can't get across the bridge anymore. I live in Miami Beach. Everybody from New York and New Jersey and Massachusetts is moving into my neighborhood. I'm pissed off. And this guy's just doing more of it. What he's proposing is beyond insane, but I love it.
You are
now,
very
I'm
dramatic.
like everybody else. Listen, you guys live here. You're not paying your fair share.
I don't live here.
You've got to pay 110%. That's the right thing to do. Because he's not cutting spending. He's just going to tax you into oblivion.
You said this is distressing.
Oh, very distressing. And what I noticed in that soundbite, you guys called it an ultimatum. I'd go as far to call it a threat. And I don't like to see elected officials threatening each other in this way. Hochul's worried about her reelection, and she knows that a tax hike in any way, shape, or form will not be received well by voters. So this isn't just about her winning. It's that people don't want it. And he doesn't get that message.
But he'll probably do it if she wins and Bruce Blakeman. She'll probably do it anyway, just like the whole congestion pricing thing, which she's sure she wouldn't do.
And it was debacle.
Yeah, so you heard that. And the crazy part is, this didn't require some advanced economics degree to figure out. Ladies and gentlemen, just basic common sense would do. Free stuff isn't free. And yeah, when you want to expand the government, it's going to cost money. And if you push taxes high enough on a small group of wealthy people, no matter how wealthy they are, they're not going to sit there and absorb it. At least not forever. They're going to restructure. They're going to relocate. They're going to protect their assets. We've seen this movie before. And so when I hear Democrats say things like, we're going to make your life more affordable, and then the first sentence out their mouth is, by taxing the rich to pay for it, I immediately think, all right, but I don't think that's going to pan out the way you think it is. Because here's what usually happens when the numbers don't add up. They pivot. And all of a sudden it becomes, we're going to broaden the tax base. Translation, everybody else. Middle class, upper middle class, homeowners, the people who actually have steady taxable income and can't just move to Florida next week. Those are the people who end up footing the bill. That's the pattern. And New York is just the latest example playing out in real time. And so now you got the New York City Council pushing back against Mamdani's so-called last resort budget proposal. Check it out.
There's some controversy surrounding Mayor Mamdani's plan to close the city's $5 billion deficit.
Yeah, the mayor's calling for higher taxes on corporations and millionaires. He also wants the state to send more money. Eyewitness News reporter Phil Tate live from City Hall with the details on this. Some people good with this, others not so much, Phil.
Yeah, Charlene, you got that right. Good morning to the both of you. And that's as the city council appears to be against Mayor Mamdani's budget proposal of raising property taxes by 9.5%. The mayor saying, however, this is a last-ditch effort in order to close in on that $5 billion budget gap that the city is facing. The mayor has repeated the call for higher taxes on major corporations and millionaires, returning more tax dollars from the state to the city. Now, if he's unable to tax the ultra-wealthy, something decided by the governor, he's proposing a property tax increase on more than 3 million residential apartments and over 100,000 commercial buildings. He would draw down $980 million from the city's rainy day fund and another $229 million from the retiree health benefits fund. The mayor says there will be no cuts to city services, from outreach to the homeless and for services for the mentally ill. However, the mayor is laser focused at chipping away at a $5 billion budget deficit by increasing taxes, but everyone isn't on board.
Think about the senior citizens living on the margins already. We have a food insecurity issue. People are struggling out there, and this is a non-starter.
He should be decreasing spending that isn't improving New Yorkers' lives. That's where he should be focused now. Not increasing taxes, but decreasing unuseful spending.
Jared Walzak, a senior fellow at the Tax Foundation, a nonprofit, says bumping up property taxes would lead to rent increases, make New York City less desirable, and go against the national trend.
What I will say beyond this is that across the country, most cities, most states are reducing property tax rates, not raising them.
Yeah, so you heard that. And so what people with common sense are saying, and what Zohran Mamdani seems to be willing to ignore, is that raising property taxes does not happen in a vacuum. There's a ripple effect. It doesn't just hit the people who you think it will hit. It ends up trickling down more times than not. Because what do you think happens when a homeowner, not some billionaire, just someone who owns a house or maybe a rental property or two, suddenly sees their property taxes jump?
The actual people trying to come up and actually trying to make something out of themselves in this capital society where we can use it, our hard work, utilize our hard work and turn it into money instead of a communist society where everything is fair no matter how hard you work your ass off. We should be so grateful for the advantage that our work, our hard work, can be turned into something as big as a legacy or just enough money to keep our family eating and healthy and happy and housed. Come on, guys. I don't understand the communists. I don't understand. They're
going to adjust one way or another. Period. And who does that affect? Not the wealthy. It affects working class tenants. It affects lower income families. It affects the very people who were told by Mamdani that he was going to make life better for them by creating more government programs paid for by, yes, the rich. And so now you've got homeowners in New York speaking out saying, wait a minute, this isn't exactly what I signed up for. Check it out.
Mayor Mamdani's proposed budget has scared a lot of people, homeowners, co-op and condo owners, building owners, anyone who could see their property tax bills go up if Albany doesn't find extra money to bail the city out of its fiscal crisis. Political reporter Marcia Kramer has the story.
Flushing, Queens is a neighborhood of homeowners who are proud of their leafy streets, tiny plots of land, and the ability to have a touch of suburbia. Many, like Paul Graziano, have lived in the neighborhood for decades, but now they're worried they could be forced out by Mayor Mamdani's threat of a huge property tax hike. He says of his neighbors,
I think they would freak out.
Paul is worried too.
Absolutely impinge everything. I mean, I'm raising a 9-year-old kid, and everybody knows when you're raising kids, it's every dollar counts.
His taxes have already skyrocketed. When he bought this home in the neighborhood he grew up in, the taxes were $2,800. Now they're $11,000. Mamdani tax hike would mean another hike of over $1,000, and he's furious.
This is coming from someone who has never had to fight for anything in his life, who grew up in privilege and wealth. So, of course, raising property taxes on rich people, such as himself, isn't much of a burden.
But it's not just homeowners. Ann Korshak owns 2 small West Side buildings, which each have 10 apartments.
There's no restraint. They just come to us as if we're an ATM machine.
She says the Mamdani tax hike, if it comes to fruition, will affect her tenants, too.
It's going to make it much harder for me to replace a boiler. Instead, I'm going to repair it. Patch a roof instead of replacing a roof. Those are the kinds of decisions you have to make when, 40% of your rent roll is going to the city in property taxes.
Champagne socialism, is it everything we thought it was going to be, guys? Do we love it? Do we want it?
The mayor says raising property taxes is not his first choice. He wants more money from all.
Dude, New York is so beautiful. I never realized how beautiful it is. When I think of New York, I just think of trash flying on the streets and like the city. It's because I played True Crime New York when I was a kid. So that's my image of New York. But oh my gosh, how beautiful. Like, this is a beautiful place.
But
this is a budget that reflects the only tools that the city has at its disposal. When we are speaking about property taxes, that is a tool of very last resort.
He's a tool. I had to.
Short.
Yeah, so you heard that. And so I wanted to share this because Mamdani has been vocal about not cooperating with ICE and Trump-proofing New York City, he has mentioned in the past. And so let's go ahead and check this out. This comes from the New York State Comptroller, and it's the Asylum Seeker Spending Report. The Office of the State Comptroller has created this tool to document state and city emergency spending related to people seeking asylum. The information will be updated quarterly. Data are available for download below. And so it says state spending, the 2025-2026 enacted budget financial plan indicates the state plans to spend $4.3 billion between state fiscal year 2022-2023, which is already passed, through state fiscal year 2026-2020.
How do you guys feel about that? Like the tax money actually going to this free stuff for people who are not even legally here. Asylum seeking, okay?
7, for emergency spending related to people seeking asylum in the United States. Yeah. And so when people say, why is affordability getting worse, or why are budgets so tight, this is part of the picture. May not be the whole picture, but it's definitely part of the picture. And here's the point. You can debate policy all day, but the bill is real and somebody always has to pay. Just depends on who's going to be.
Yeah. And now we can get into the fun of actually living there, you guys. We pretty much covered everything this guy talked about, I'm pretty sure. Oh no, he's talking about the snow. Okay. I'll save this. I don't know if we need this video. Where's the snow? Here it is. Yeah, we did need that video. It actually was super, super important, and I can't believe I almost didn't add this. Mamdani gave a speech, and he invoked Allah during his speech.
But I have begun to turn to people who are Muslim and voting for them versus voting for Christians in America. Well, the conversation is very complicated, but I think we have to have it.
Or as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, Islam began as something strange and will go back to being strange. So glad tidings to the strangers. If faith offers us the moral compass to stand alongside the stranger, government can provide the resources. Let us create a new expectation of City Hall, where power is wielded to love, to embrace, and to protect.
I've said this before, this guy is pushing for Sharia law. He is pushing to radicalize New York City, and he's virtue signaling to his base. How stupid of you guys to vote this man in as mayor. And if you think women's rights are going to be protected under this mayor, you have another thing coming. He is virtue signaling. There is a group chat in WhatsApp with them plotting and planning, and the Democrats are all in on it. Those politicians are not your friends.
I don't get it. Muhammad was a vile, evil person, and we're going to invoke him. I just don't understand how you can bring up Muhammad and living an honest life at the same time. It's kind of a joke.
To be honest, it's a pretty big eyesore.
Banks of dirty snow coupled with piles of trash, like a post-snowstorm hangover that's lingering face to the unending cold temperatures. But the heaps of trash have prompted some outrage after Michael Rappaport, who's no friend of Mayor Mamdani, complained about the trash on the Upper East Side, and council member Ina Vernikov also took aim at the mayor. The mayor says they're working on it.
Sanitation is currently running about 24 hours behind on trash collection. I know that they are working with everything that they have to come up to speed, and that'll continue to be a focus for us because
I don't know how true that is. I think the trash has been piling up for a while now. This video is pretty old. Let me see when this one was posted. 2 weeks ago. So yeah, this was a while ago. I think there's still trash piling up. Like last time I saw it, it was like 8, maybe 6 feet. I'm pretty dramatic. It could have been 6 feet. But it was taller than the chick walking by.
we want is a city where New Yorkers can continue to return back to their lives as they were.
So I'd like to address the trash crisis that we're still seeing in some parts of New York City to this very day, where you're witnessing these scenes of massive mountains of garbage bags just piling up on top of each other. The initial excuse given was that, well, it was because of the snowstorm, but the snowstorm now was about 2 weeks ago, and we're still watching to this day the effort of cleanup as it pertains to both the snow and the garbage has gone incredibly slow under the Mamdani administration. Many residents are starting to get fed up with the situation. They're describing it as rancid and a biohazard. Actually saw some videos today of not just the rat population, as you could imagine, exploding around these piles of garbage, but even saw one. I know this is very disgusting, but maggots. Yeah, that's right. Larvae and worms are starting to live within these settlements of disgusting Mamdani trash bags all around the city. But ladies and gentlemen, at the same time, part of me feels like these trash bags should stay there permanently. Why? Because they ought to stand as a permanent memorial to the Mamdani ideology and leftism as a whole, right? Essentially, this is what you voted for. This is the warmth of collectivism we're all celebrating. So why not just keep it there? Not just because of the socialist aspect of it, although that's true, yeah. Interestingly enough, the people who purport to be the parties of big government seem to love to have inefficient government services. But frankly, secondly, I'd further point out that, well, what does New York City look like right now? A third world country. And what is leftism and what is the ideology truly of the Democrat Party in 2026? That's what it's all about, right? They want to turn America into the third world, and they're not exactly all that quiet about it. Okay, you have Mamdani as one example.
I completely agree with him on this. I just want to see... I just really want you guys to see how bad this freaking trash issue is. Like, imagine living on top of all this, especially including all the things that are happening with taxes, knowing you're not even paying a... Okay, so you're literally, right, you're paying taxes, and there's not even a government worker to come and take your trash or get your car out of ice so that you can go to work. I'm pretty positive there's a shutdown right now, like a complete shutdown, which I will double check. But could you imagine the stress you'd be going through knowing every store is closed because there's a blizzard? There's a pile of trash outside of your door. The electricity's not very great. And then aside from that, you can't even leave if you wanted because your car's buried in ice, black ice, and snow. Like... Oh, I'm so glad I'm not in New York. This is crazy.
Political candidate who ran his entire campaign, essentially trying to appeal to the foreign-born New York City residents who in many cases migrated from third world countries.
Okay, let's go see this.
News and coverage. And that said, let us start by showing you some of the sights and sounds of the New York City trash crisis.
I did a video about Mamdani not cleaning up the trash in New York, and people were like, oh, it's because of city snow, because of ice. Do you see this? This is because of nothing. Look, this is the Great Wall of New York City trash. This is now a national landmark, actually. You can't even see that there is a road on the opposite side of this. I'm about 6 feet tall. Look at this. This is my height. At the very least, I'll give it to Mamdani. They separated the recycles and the wall of trash. So you have a nice wall of recycles here and a beautiful wall of trash here. This is insane.
That summarizes it so well too, right? Well, hey, at least we're recycling. Sure, we may have this third world looking pile of trash as tall as 6 feet going on in our city. But did you make sure to separate the bags from the bottles? There you go, right? This is environmentally friendly. Because look, yeah, there might be rats and maggots living in all this trash, but actually, you know, just the fact that we're making sure we're not wasting plastic, we're saving the turtles here by doing this, you know, that's obviously what matters most. But it goes on.
I just want to give a congratulations to our newly elected, amazing, wonderful mayor, Kwame Mamdani. Everything's under control. The streets are all clear. Garbage is all being picked up. It's on schedule. It's every 3-4 weeks. They come by, they pick up some garbage. We're following the sanitation procedures of Cuba. It's going to be beautiful. Just get nose plugs in case the weather starts smelling. There's not that much garbage. Poquito.
I'd be terrified of what was living in there. These poor people. I do say these poor people, but it is what they voted for. They got what they voted for. And that's sad. Like, that sucks. I hope the rest of America takes notes and doesn't vote for communism. And like I said, what's happening with Virginia, which I'll add a video here. I'll just add a video here so you guys can see, because it's insanity.
Abigail Spanberger and Virginia Democrats won big because they told voters that they would reduce the cost of living and improve affordability in the Commonwealth. But this legislative session, a lot of Virginia Democratic lawmakers have proposed over 50 new tax increases and proposals. I'll read some of them to you. They include additional local sales tax in all Virginia counties and cities, new personal property tax on electric leaf blowers and electric landscaping equipment, large employer tax, new income tax brackets, a delivery tax. This would hit you if you ordered things on Amazon, Uber Eats, UPS, FedEx, etc. Investment income tax, event tax, concert tax, storage facility tax, gym membership tax, got to catch my breath, digital personal property tax, new car taxes and highway use fees, increase in the hotel tax here in Arlington, statewide speed cameras. Now, those aren't taxes, but drivers would pay more fines if that went through, a dry cleaning tax, concert tax, home repair tax, and a vehicle repair tax. Now, dog walking tax, dog grooming tax.
Dog grooming tax? Leroy and I will never survive. Virginia Democrats are finding out as their new governor is set to implement new taxes.
Yeah, well, how fitting is it that within literally a month of New York City electing a third world socialist, the city already looks like a third world socialist country.
Hooray,
you know, that didn't take long.
Socialism.
And maybe a lot of people had the presumption that, well, because Mamdani ran on a bunch of fantastical campaign promises and he doesn't really have authority over a lot of these things, there's no way he's actually going to make New York City look like, you know, Somalia or Cuba or Venezuela or just some random failed state out there that often are the original byproduct, right, of, you know, socialist or far left ideas combined with just third world inability to build functional countries. That can't happen, right? Which is not very practical, I would think, but, you know.
Here we go. One last thing.
So that part, okay, fine, fair enough, you can't control. But so, you know, anyways, the New York Post here is reporting that New Yorkers are feeling left out in the cold more than a week after the fierce winter storm dumped over a foot of snow in the city, leaving behind iceberg-sized snow piles that are blocking roadways, bike lanes, sidewalks, and parking spots. So, you know, okay, the politicians can't control the weather, contrary to whatever the Democrat Party tries to say about, you know, climate change ideology. So that part, okay, fine, fair enough, you can't control. But how is the cleanup going? Well, as of just 2 days ago, there is still a lot of snow left on the streets, and now with the trash pickups, it just feels like it's magnified and it's really unsafe and unsightly. And you can see this scene here, right here, for example, of, you know, a woman trying to put her baby in the stroller on this just massive pile of snow and ice. You know, the sidewalk's not even visible, right? Because they basically just scraped it all to the side there. Drivers have been stymied along 8th and 9th Avenues in Midtown Manhattan thanks to unruly frozen snow piles that are blocking entire lanes, which, by the way, we did see some videos of, well, the bulldozers just like dumping the snow in the middle of the street, which
is weird.
Not very practical,
This is
I would
so
think,
weird.
but, you know.
Fair is fair, right?
He's
Fairly
jumping
spread
in
it
the fucking
out.
bus lane.
This is crazy. It's gonna make it ice, is what it's gonna do. It's not gonna make it melt.
This is crazy.
Sanitation has melted 183 pounds of snow and laid 227 million pounds of salt, Mamdani had said, but some lifelong city dwellers were not buying this triumphant assessment, saying, quote, "I've never seen this in my life, the piles and everything. This guy, Mamdani, is full of blank. He's more concerned," this was a 70-year-old resident, by the way.
Poor guy.
He's more concerned about getting jackets that look cool when he does press conferences. So, very true. Beyond dragging down drivers, the snowy streets have further turned into treacherous slip and slides. I've slipped, I fell off my bicycle, the food is all over the street. I wear a lot of clothes, so I feel a little pain, so it's not too bad. But sometimes they don't plow the bike lane, and I have to ride in the street, and that's dangerous. Which is frankly hilarious, because these people are supposed to be progressive. You know, they're all about reducing car-centric infrastructure. So yeah, just, you know, ride your bike like the Europeans do. Amazing. And then they don't even plow the bike lane. Very fitting, you know. And then you gotta imagine riding a bicycle in the streets. Frankly, anywhere in the streets is dangerous, but New York City with those drivers, yeah. Not very safe. Not very inclusive, by the way to the.
So yeah, it seems like fun, right, guys? So let's see what is this? This is just 2 days ago. Let me make sure it's 2 days ago. Yeah, 2 days ago. A little update on the snow, you guys.
DSNY vans and 2 DSNY buses to transport shovelers where they're needed faster. And for those who want to do more to help your neighbors and earn some extra cash, you too can become an emergency snow shoveler. Just show up at your local sanitation garage between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m.
You got it, Comrade.
With your paperwork, and you can get started right away.
So it looks like Mao Zedong is now at the great leap forward stage of his little socialist experiment. You know, we have the Great Leap Backwards 2026 LGBT DEI edition now streaming on Netflix. All jokes aside, after receiving extensive criticism for his handling of the last snowstorm where we saw homeless people freezing to death, piles of garbage sitting in the streets for weeks, dirty snow causing numerous health and safety hazards, Mamdani is now responding to the upcoming blizzard set to hit New York this weekend by, I kid you not, now begging private citizens and the general public for their help in cleaning up the snow. That is right. Apparently, Big Brother is no longer around to help so much. Hey, New York, if you don't like the snow, have you considered pulling yourself up by the bootstraps? It's really funny how it always ends like this. Now, by my understanding, in the beginning, this jobs program will be voluntary, but I would give it only a matter of time before we see random New Yorkers getting dragged out of their Manhattan apartments to go work the fields and increase agricultural output this summer. But all joking aside, I think this frankly stands as a casual admission, right, that the New York government services and government response have completely failed, despite the fact that they increasingly are attempting to raise taxes and already deal with a massive government budget. You subtly have Mamdani here admitting that, yeah, we can no longer even competently clean up or shovel the snow. So, hey, New Yorkers, want to do our own job for us? Which I actually think is a prime example of the third world socialism that we so often discuss. Because here you have a guy in Mamdani and a political party in the Democrats who campaign on the premise of big government. And the bargain there is essentially that, hey, look, yeah, you're going to have to pay higher taxes. You got to pay your fair share. We all got to come together. But what we vow to you is big government will provide you good public services and education and infrastructure and all these things you're going to personally be taken care of. So trust me, it'll all be worth it. And then in the end, what always happens is actually the opposite. Despite raising taxes, despite a gigantic government budget, and despite so many quote unquote resources being dedicated to government services, all of these government services immediately start to collapse. They become dysfunctional. That is honestly the paradox of voting for left-wingers, and I think this is the case whether you're talking about Democrats and the supposedly moderate leftists in the West, or even say the extreme communists of authoritarian regimes, right? Always in the end, the people are starving, the people are fending for themselves. Meanwhile, the government just keeps on taking everything that they have and never giving that back in return. And here you have it once again. So in today's video, guys, I want to tell you about this new breaking news. Apparently, this new program that Mamdani is implementing to just do the government's job for them, despite being the party of big government. But hey, you know, you thought raising taxes meant the government was going to help you? No, that means that's so that way we can astroturf a fake budget crisis and spend our $127 billion budget on DEI offices. And everyone goes, oh, okay, that's what it was about. Sorry, I was mistaken. I thought it would mean better roads, better infrastructure, more snow shovelers, right? Just to provide context of this whole situation in New York City and why Mamdani is basically having to admit here that his government response has failed, let us briefly recap some of the highlights of what we saw in the streets of New York City as a result of the last snowstorm.
Let me tell you something, folks who don't live in New York. I have lived here for years, and I hate being the person that tries blaming a politician for the conditions of snow removal. And let's be frank, snow removal and physical infrastructure conditions are in the exclusive province of the government, okay? And look at this shit. This is just one block.
Bro.
Oh no.
The sidewalk is filled with
Like, this is... They're gonna have to hand out maps like San Francisco, guys. Is ridiculous. I scared I'm gonna step in it. But y'all, I ain't never seen no shit like that. Pun intended.
This poor bastard ain't getting out until the spring.
Yeah.
Look at this. Dirt a week after the snowstorm.
Imagine not being able to return to work because your car was snowed in.
Look at this. Dirty shit.
Well, as I said at the time, there's a reason why I don't just say socialism, I say third world socialism, because when you really break down the end goal of Democrats, it is to turn America into a third world country. We know that because they are obsessed and even will violently defend their agenda to import millions of people.
I hear his point. I'm not exactly at that point where I feel like they're trying to turn it into third world country. Technically, communism is third world. Just in my opinion, third world, technically. So I guess he's not wrong. It just sounds crazy harsh.
From the third world and turn American society into something that looks like that. And then similarly, govern on a domestic level in a very likewise fashion to the way they do over in the third world. I mean, the pictures don't lie. Here you have Uganda. Here you have New York City side by side. Which one's Uganda and which one's New York City? I mean, we just have absolutely no idea. But to make a long story short, Mamdani, as you could expect, faced a lot of criticism over this past disaster.
Okay, this is the last update, you guys. It is from yesterday. And there is snowplows now. But guess what? They're only on one side of town. And I'm sure you can guess which. Let's go look.
And the entire city has essentially been paralyzed. Look at that tree that just fell down. That's going to take out people's power lines. There's going to be people living in the dark. Look, they got the fire department out there. That's good that they're at least out there. But that apartment, that place doesn't have any power. I see a light on in this other one. Okay, that's a good thing. But this place has failed to operate. Look at this. You cannot drive down the street. Can't take a bike. There goes the idea to save the environment, riding around a city e-bike. And we do have some snow plows, but this looks like a rich neighborhood right here. You know how I can tell? Because the neighborhood I live in hasn't been plowed yet. And some of this footage is from last night. Look at this. You ain't getting delivery either, because even if the restaurant that you want to get delivery from is open, there ain't nobody riding a bike because they're banned. They're not even supposed to be out there on the road, if they could even do it. And these guys, they're out there with snow blowers, but they can't get a job working for the city to shovel more snow than is necessary if they don't have access to CVS. You see, look at this. Where's this in my neighborhood? I don't see this in my neighborhood. Well, how come they have 4 trucks right there? That's crazy. But they're not here. This is how it works, man. You gotta live where the rich live, or the well-connected, or over by where the mayor is. I'm sure they plowed Gracie Manor. I'm sure they plowed City Hall. Unbelievable. And they say we don't have enough money.
Well, yeah.
And hence, this time around is looking to save face. So he's already announced for the new snowstorm a couple of different little performative tactics as one example here. Apparently now, outreach workers will be working 24/7 to encourage people to go to shelters, warming buses that will be available to them. Now, I'm still trying to ask the question here as to what will happen if the homeless people who are likely on drugs just refuse to do so. They don't want to go to the shelter, so is the city just going to allow them to freeze to death and somehow that's more compassionate? Not exactly sure, but hey, you know, that's the geniusness of Mamdani's homelessness policy. Apparently, while outreach workers will be hitting homeless encampments through the city, encouraging people to go to shelters during the storm, the city will not be tearing down the makeshift shanties, aka the homeless encampments, that have been built by the homeless before Sunday's storm, Mamdani said. So you notice, as usual, leftists love to weaponize a crisis, and so quite conveniently, he's now using the snowstorm as a reason why he will not be cleaning up the homeless encampments around the city, not just because he's obsessed with the third world. He absolutely wants to turn all of America and New York City into the third world slum. No, sure, just because of the blizzard. That's why I can't clean up the homelessness. I would say take a look in about 3 months and see if they at all start cleaning up the homelessness. Right? I don't think that's going to change. I think that blizzard moratorium on breaking up the homeless is going to stay permanent. Quite.
That's sad.
Frankly. But anyways, you have that on one hand, so he's hoping to maybe save face. Hey, maybe the homelessness situation will not be as much of a disaster this time. But as it pertains to the trash out in the streets, the shoveling of snow, the whole situation out in the roads and the sidewalks, Mamdani, as I hinted at in the beginning, is apparently now trying to beg the general public for help. Because
yes, I want you guys to hear this one from a different video, just so we can add another cool creator for you guys to see if you enjoy, because I feel like the truth is we don't have enough diverse news, and that's why YouTube's such a great source. You can find news from each sides, and even Brad, he's very much left middle, but he's still sort of middle, like he'll still touch Republican stuff, but he seems to have grown a little more left to me. That's just a personal opinion, but he does claim to be middle, and this is pretty funny. So let's go see.
With your paperwork, which is accessible online.
Quote, this is Jim Snow 2.0. So, about that paperwork. Well, let's look into it.
I actually discovered Vince Dow's channel from Brad Palumbo because he likes to take a far left creator and a far right creator and let them have debates on his channel. I like the way he does his news. He's pretty cool. He's very, very strict on being a true journalist, and he gives his opinions at times, but he lets people know it's an opinion.
We got to check in with Zohran Mamdani, the new far left democratic socialist or communist, depending which of his prior statements you're evaluating. The new mayor of New York City, who's of course taking charge and already facing some very serious challenges, which is, daunting, but any mayor can, but he's been hit with them perhaps harder and sooner than I expected. So like massive winter weather issues, and we talked about this, the whole issue with homeless people, and he didn't perform the sweeps, and many of them froze to death on the streets, and so we discussed that. But there's another drama going down with Zohran that I find kind of hilarious, I'm not going to lie, where he is trying to recruit people to volunteer as emergency snow shovelers, sorry, and it's not volunteering, it's a paid opportunity by the city for like temporary work, and requiring an insane amount of IDs and verifications, even though, of course, the Democratic Socialist left insists that concepts like voter ID are inherently racist and discriminatory. Anyway, he's of course being roasted for this, but here, and we'll get into all the details, but first here's the clip of him making this announcement, and then I will kind of explain Zohran's side of it as well, because his hands may be tied to some extent here, but listen to this.
We're utilizing 33 DSNY vans and 2 DSNY buses to transport shovelers where they're needed faster. And for those who want to do more to help your neighbors and earn some extra cash, you too can become an emergency snow shoveler. Just show up at your local sanitation garage between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. tomorrow with your paperwork, which is accessible online at nyc.gov/snow, and you can get started right away.
So, about that paperwork. Well, let's look into it. Here's the headline from Mediaite. Zohran Mamdani gets ruthlessly mocked for requiring 5 forms of ID to be an emergency snow shoveler. Quote, this is Jim Snow 2.0. The Democratic Socialists of America believe voter identification laws are quote-unquote racist, but DSA Comrade and New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani wants you to provide a grip of IDs to have the honor of being an emergency snow shoveler. How many IDs are we talking about? 5 to be exact. The New York City website for aspirational shovelers asks for the following documents on its application page: 2 small photos, 2 original forms of ID plus copies, and a social security card. That seems like a lot, but again, shovelers who get hired make up to $28.71 an hour. His government's requests for multiple forms of ID stands out, though, considering the DSA, which he's a member, has opposed voter ID. That issue has gained more attention of late as Trump and other Republicans have backed the SAVE Act, which would require proof of American citizenship to vote. Let's read from the DSA's website here. Our candidates for office stand firm against racist voter ID laws and secret poll taxes like the Save America Act. Right now, our socialists in office are working to build a society that works for everyone. In our chapters, we continue to educate working class voters about the needless complications in our electoral system, from party registration dates to laws like these. So, yeah, Are they going to call Zoran Mamdani out for his apparent racism? Now, in reality, I don't think any of this is racist. I think it's absurd. I think it's basically common sense to require an ID when you are voting. And I don't accept the idea or the notion that black people or different minorities are somehow not capable of getting IDs. I actually find that like vaguely racist itself as a form of pushback to these policies, but it's just funny, right? And it to some extent, I think Zoran has his hands tied. He has to pay these people as official city government employees, and there's lots of like laws they have to comply with to do that require them to be verified and to have identification. So Zoran's not necessarily choosing to do this. So I'm not sure that he's actually being hypocritical. It's more so that
the law requires him to be hypocritical.
Just like watching the utopian, just like out of touch with reality nature of the DSA ideology run into so many like just blatant roadblocks and debunk itself in real time when you are actually put in a position of power or authority for one.
And we are going to leave it there, okay, you guys? And mostly because my next video, we are going to discuss exactly what he said. Black people having to require ID is racist. Like, how racist? Oh my god. And I'll just give you guys a little preview because we don't have enough time to do it right now, obviously. But oh my lord, this is insanity. These people are nuts.
Do you know what voter ID is?
Yeah, of course I know what voter ID is. It's not necessary. Voter fraud in this country is not an issue and it never really has been.
Do you guys have an ID?
Yeah. An ID?
Yeah.
Yeah. It restrict probably minority rights. People don't have access to getting IDs, so that would have an effect if it did pass.
Do you think it's racist to ask every American citizen to present an ID when they go to vote?
No.
No?
No.
How would it affect minorities?
Oh, God, I hit the talking point.
Do you have an ID?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Do you have an ID?
Yeah.
Do you have an ID?
I have an ID.
You have an ID. Okay, all right. Do you have an ID?
I do.
So you have an ID, though.
I have an ID. They said that about me? Like a brown person? That's pretty racist.
Yes, so make sure, if you're not subscribed, to subscribe, because I'm going to react to this with you. I have only seen the intro, and I was, like, pumped by it. So go watch this with me next week, okay? I really hope you enjoyed hanging out with me for this hour or so, and if you are new here, hit subscribe. I do content like this mostly right now. I'm just enjoying this red wave of politics and life-changing actions that are happening because of Papa Trump, and yeah, man. I will be posting a vlog very soon that we did, and some reacts at the end of it with my daughter that were really fun. I went through my Instagram DMs with her of the stuff she sends me, and she's hilarious. So we're gonna make that a new thing we do together. So if that's something you're interested in too, hit subscribe. Don't forget to like this video. Help a girl out. Help me reach more people as we are almost to 100 subscribers. And I thank you all for joining me here. I will see you next time.